This is going to be a very interesting video because EvoCreo is a mobile game that has been released 10 years ago that is now being ported onto Steam in 2026. And this is just done before EvoCreo 2 comes out in the next couple of months. Now, despite being a 10-year-old game, it is actually quite fun to play. I've got 6 hours in already and I'm really hooked. Obviously, this game appeals a lot to those who enjoy Pokemon-like games, especially if you want that nostalgia of the pixel art. Despite kind of that similarity, the gameplay is quite elevated. So let me delve into the battle mechanics. Each Creo has 5 moves. One is an elite move, so that's kind of like a Zat move, 3 normal moves, and 1 heal. And yes, that is a very interesting concept, a heal for every Creo. Moves also have cooldowns. Weaker ones may not have a cooldown, but the stronger ones, especially like the elites and the heals, will have some sort of cooldown. And that will really evolve into a strategic and deep gameplay. Rather than just attacking straight up and getting one-shots, this game has a lot more strategy. You want to apply state effects like blind, poison, burn, and yes, you have to time your heals. So if you are a slower Creo, you want to anticipate that and make sure you have picked the heal before you're too low. And I'm really enjoying that battle mechanic because not only are arenas, which are the gyms, interesting, but also random trainers. I think this is actually one of the most interesting battle mechanics from like almost all Pokemon-like games. I really enjoy Temtem stamina system. This is pretty much close. So based on that alone, I'm loving EvoCreo. Now, I do think there are some weird balancing things, like the route that I have has pretty much no defense and it has a high attack, and that creates very weird scenarios where sometimes I just die too quick. And then on the opposite side, Roto has so much defense that it almost feels impossible to lose. There are situations where, for example, it was paralyzed and it couldn't actually recover. So yes, there are still ways to put it in danger, especially if the enemy had more status effects like poison or bleed. Overall, there's so many different mechanics, it makes it very interesting. Now, when it comes to Creos, apart from the moves, they can have up to 9 elements, and they also have 10 ranks. So you will usually see like a 1 or 2 star on the wild Creos, but especially when fighting other trainers, you may notice that they have higher stars, and you can actually catch higher ranks. And I try to hunt a bit for some rare ones, like getting a 7 star, and the ranks means that they will be stronger Creos. Now, I don't know how rare the 10 star is because I haven't found a wild one yet, and I don't know if there's any late game thing that will influence it, but I think that could be a fun thing to really try and get. Creos also have traits and abilities. Traits tend to impact the battle, so for example having Sturdy, which increases your defense, or having faster recharge for either the normal or like the elite and healing moves, and that can create more interesting strategies on what moves you may pick. Creos also have abilities that influence more the overworld, in the sense that the leading Creo may have something like Attract Fire to attract more wildfire Creos for you to catch. One of my favorites is of course Ride, that I got on my starter Dior, and that means I can mount very early on in the game and the traveling time is so much quicker. One thing that the game also does very interestingly is branched evolutions. So for example, my starter Dior will evolve based on the elemental moves that it uses during the battles, and because I use quirks a lot, it evolved into a water type. As a new player into the game, I obviously don't know how many branches there are, how many evolutions, etc. However, the fact that even just the starter that I picked could have evolved into 8 different ones, I think that's very interesting. And because you can really influence it based on the moves you pick, and perhaps even the traits that you are choosing to kind of create more deep strategy, I think that kind of adds a layer of team building and strategy that I really am enjoying. Now, when it comes to the main story, the Steam page says it has around 20 hours of offline play, and something that I actually enjoyed is that right away it gives you an arrow to point you in the direction you are meant to go. Something I also enjoy is that it is not text heavy. Like, there is a good story, but it keeps it concise. So you're not going through that Pokemon 2-hour introduction just to be able to start. No, the game starts picking up fairly quickly, and within 6 hours I've already beaten 3 arenas. Now, in the arenas you get to face 3 battles, and you can heal between them. You cannot leave the arena, but that's fine. So if you're just buying the items, like a couple of healing items, you'll be fine. And especially because if you have a high defense Pokemon that can heal within the battle itself, you may not even need the items. Now, despite me loving the gameplay, I have to admit it is a bit buggy. I've had, I think, 3 random crashes just like out of nowhere, and that is a bit concerning, so to speak. And also, when it comes to the controllers, it's clear that it is a mobile port. So if I were to use a controller, it's actually not a great experience. Now, I've switched to mainly using the keyboard, but there are still a couple of things that I actually have to use the mouse and click things directly. You can also tell by the game design that it is a bit of an older game, it is a mobile game, because it does lack a bit of the quality of life that I would expect in modern games, like hotkeys and stuff like that, that may make some of the gameplay quicker and more efficient. Despite that, I'm still enjoying the game. I still want to continue it, and it already has me sold on playing EvoCreo 2 and wanting to play PvP once that launches. So I think EvoCreo has done what it wanted to achieve, which is let the world know about it. Apart from the PvP system that will also come to EvoCreo 1 in a couple months, there are some very interesting things that I read within the game that I haven't achieved yet. One of them is genetic modifications, and there's also like prestige systems where you might need rank 10s and level 100s, and I don't know what that's going to be like, but that can probably add some very interesting post-game, especially potentially for PvP players. There's also mention of Prime Creos, which I have not yet seen. I'm honestly very curious and want to continue and finish the game. Would I recommend this game? I'm a little on the fence because for the quality of the game itself, like with a bit of the controller, a bit of the crashes, maybe the €10 is a bit on the higher price that I would expect. I would have still gotten it, but knowing people have limited funds, I would rather wait for EvoCreo 2. But based on the experience of this game, I definitely think EvoCreo 2 is a must-buy for anyone who enjoys these type of games. And if you have funds to play this, I actually really enjoy it. I know it is mixed reviews on Steam, but if you can get past a bit of the controller usage, this is actually a really fun game. And you probably see me more with EvoCreo 2 playing PvP, and I hope that we can build a community around that. I'm truly excited to have something like this come to Steam and kind of revive that Pokemon-like raw essence, especially with these very interesting battle mechanics. Let me know what you think about the game, and I hope you subscribe so you can see more EvoCreo in the future. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.